A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
A half-second lead. Oh, with the sizzling car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive, massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
A very good evening to you all, wherever you happen to be tuning in, or whether you're watching this stream back at another point in time after the race is over. Welcome, everybody, to round 3 of the AMS Oz Super 2 series. We've spent the first couple of rounds on the mainland. Now we head south and we end up in a little place called Symmons Plains on the Apple Isle of Tasmania. And it's going to be a couple of great, very short sprint races coming up in the next hour or so. My name is Steve Deveries, aka Nether, from AMS Oz and Apex Rear Wing and everything else. And as per usual, with me in the commentary box is Hans Brunswick. Hans, how are you?
Oh, hello, Nether. Good to be with you. Good to be here again, and always enjoying your fantastic company. So, looking forward to a couple of good races tonight at an all-action track, Symmons Plains. So,
Absolutely. It's a very busy little track, but before we get too far into things, we'll take a quick look at the Super 2 race calendar. So there it is. We've been through Adelaide. We've been through the 2 sprint races at Albert Park a couple of weeks ago. Now we've got 2 back-to-back races in consecutive weeks. We've got a pair of sprint races at Symmons Plains tonight, and then we've got a longer feature race at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit coming up next week. So plenty of activity, and then we have a little bit of a break until after Easter is over, and then we'll hit Barbagallo. So a couple of good races to come. First of all, let's have a look at the driver points situation. So we've got 3 different winners from 3 races so far. We had Mitchell Hathaway taking first up win in Adelaide, and the victories split last time out at Albert Park between Brendan Ross and Brenton Foley. And actually see Brenton Foley not on the top 12 there. It's because he's had all sorts of dramas with his internet. Finally put that behind him. He's got a long way to go, but he's still got plenty of racing ahead. And quite tight at the top there between Ross and Hathaway, with Phil Boak with a pair of second places and a 14th in the third race at Albert Park. Otherwise, he would have been right up there with close to 500, or if not more than 500 points. So he's definitely still not out of this. Couple of the first of the 4 drivers in there is Dwayne Davies. We haven't seen him tonight, and Steve Burko also in the Ford. And the first of the Nissans is Termo in the Castrol Racing car there with 297 points in 9th. You'd be pleased to note that we've got his livery fixed for this particular round, so it actually looks like a proper Kelly Racing Castrol Nissan. And rounding out your 10 or your top 12 there, you got Aussie, Brownie, and then Jamie Snow at the bottom there, and he's labelled as a privateer after only taking part in the last round, and he's actually, as of tonight, been confirmed he's moved over to the FCR stable, still in a Nissan, but he is driving the remainder of the series by the looks of things. So Hans, is still a long way to go, but there's plenty of points on the table. So as we know, 300 points maximum for a weekend, 150 points a piece in each particular sprint race, and still a long way to go and plenty of points on the table yet to be handed out.
Yeah, the big feature races, it's like the old 300-kilometre race format in the V8 supercars back in the day, when if you had a shocker of a race for whatever reason and you didn't finish, or you weren't classified as a finisher, what would happen is that you would get no points for the weekend. It was just over and out from there. So I mean, that is obviously lessons for the sprint races. It's only 150 apiece, but still it's crucial to be consistent and finish every race. Interesting to note that we're going to Phillip Island, which is quite close in terms of geography, but the style of circuit is totally different, whereas Symmons Plains is a big stop-start circuit, basically 2 long straights with a couple of hairpins almost at the end of it. And horsepower is the main thing there, not so much aero. A bit of braking factor as well. So 2 long braking zones, you want to maximise your passing opportunities there. And Phillip Island is a big fast flowing circuit, and most of the time the car spends turning. So two different styles of circuit, but generally the cream of the crop, they rise to the top in both of them.
They certainly do, and you just alluded to the circuit that we're at tonight, so there it is, and your race information is there. So we've got two 25-lap sprints, just a touch over 60 kilometres each sprint. The first of the counterclockwise circuits that we visit on the calendar, and 7 corners total, so that just gives you an idea of how tight and how interesting this kind of circuit is. So the hairpin down at the southeastern end of the circuit, and the final couple of turns at the northern end of the circuit. Basically, as you said, Hans, it's two basically long straights linked by a couple of hairpins. It tends to be hard on the brakes, especially down into turn 4 hairpin, which actually in real life you can take two different lines through. You can take a slightly wider line, and it is a banked turn, so you can use that banking to your advantage, or you can try and affect the pass down there at turn 4, being a primary passing zone, and then you come out of the hairpin side by side, but then you end up with the car on the inside for turn 6, but it's on the outside for turn 5. So it becomes a bit of a little game of chicken into that turn 6, 7 braking and turning zones, as to if you can actually affect the pass properly. But you've all got to set it up. It all happens down at the hairpin.
Yeah, at turn 4, what tends to happen is that you can use the banking to run down the hill and get a bit of a speed differential there, and also you by squaring off the corner and basically you're making it an earlier time that you're getting on to maximum throttle, so it lengthens this, has the effect of lengthening the straight. However, if you barrel in there, you're passing a car, you're on the inside, yes, you do have to tippy-toe around the corner and you sort of lose all your mid-corner speed there, but once you're on the outside of the curve straight, if you've got a bit of mumbo in a straight line, what happens is that you do get down the inside at turn 6, and usually it takes that whole straight from turn 4 to turn 6, but you actually get to affect that move.
Certainly. And I guess the real big killer, or the interesting point about this circuit, and everybody in supercars knows this from real life, it's the only circuit on the calendar that has a sub 1 minute lap time. So actually the lap times are just a hair over 50, 51 seconds or thereabouts. So the laps go quick. So the 25 seconds that we're going to, or so the 25 laps that we're going to have tonight literally will absolutely fly by. It's going to be a very, very quick pair of races tonight, punctuated by some qualifying sessions. So speaking of the qualifying sessions, we're not too far away from starting the qualifying session, so we'll go over and have a little bit of a look and see what's going on in just a few moments as we flick over into qualifying just now. So it's going to be a little bit different this time around, as JP Courier, the first man at the end of the pit lane, waiting for it to go green. But the private practice or private qualifying state has been turned off, so for the first 2 rounds, the viewers would probably be aware that we did have the private qualifying mode on. It made it a bit difficult for us to see who was where at any given time. They still had 2 flying laps to get the job done, so that's still in play, but now the private qualifying is turned off, we'll be able to see all the vehicles on the circuit at the same time. Well, maybe not necessarily at the same time either, because they can elect to go out when they please in this 15-minute session, given it's a very tight circuit, and we've got close to 18 or 19 cars available at the moment. It's going to be a timing factor here, just as to when you go for your lap and how you tend to approach this session. But we've got 5 takers already, and they're on the roll.
Yeah, but just watching the cars go out from the pit lane now. Yeah, like you said, 2 strategies. They can just go out, blaze around now, or they can wait at the end when when they can set their Hollywood lap time. However, I think it's interesting that the private qualifying was turned off for the one of the shortest tracks on the calendar. So finding the real estate will be a bit difficult. However, everyone's generally got a good sense of good presence of mind, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But it'll be nice to see some of the cars. They're not racing, obviously, but seeing which cars catch each other on their qualifying laps.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of new cars with some new liveries and some car changes, which we'll run throughout the night as well. And the man you're watching at the moment, JP Courier, is the first one of those. having run a different livery the first 2 rounds. Now getting his proper livery up and running with the chrome reflective bumpers and sides. The Jinx Shifters sponsorship. He's on his way down to turn number 4 now, so we'll get an indication of what the benchmark is going to be set at. He was up there in the tail end of the practice session. He was about second or third quickest overall. Now the live timing for amsoz.liveraces.com unfortunately out of action this evening, so bear with us as we keep an eye on the lap times. So rounding turn 6 and using all the road, and just watching the inside curve there at turn 7, and the benchmark time so far is a 51.229, immediately surpassed by Brenton Foley, who goes to the top with a 50.7. Mitchell Hathaway, race winner from Adelaide, pops up into 3rd place. He's another car that's carrying a new livery, him and his teammate, and his teammate goes P4. And I think the car that was behind on the road, one of the CRE cars, may have received a track violation there, and in fact that's Will Devonish behind Foley at the moment. He's in the CRE, it's a ZB Commodore now. It was a VF Commodore at the first couple of rounds, so more on that a little bit later. 8 runners have posted the time so far, but this is unusual for Foley because he's normally one of the gentlemen that likes to come out a bit later in the session, but he's elected to put the benchmarker down at the moment, and in actual fact lowers his benchmark to a 50.6. So he's got quite a nice half-second margin on Courier, who has slipped now down to 3rd, improved to a 51.1. Hathaway just getting the better of him with a 51.1 as well. Here's Will Devonish, who said in the ZB did run a HSV dealer team inspired livery the first couple of rounds, but now partnered up with Cam Rutledge, and they've moved both their cars from VF spec onto ZB spec and updated the liveries to boot. Again, the chrome liveries looking rather resplendent and rather popular. What's the new mark going to present for Devonish? We've got a local yellow flag just on the circuit somewhere, which is now cleared. Devonish is P5 at the moment, so only 10 runners Hans have elected to set some times, but they're all coming rather early. And it's who we got still sitting in the pits at the moment. So Phil Boak, Miles, Gary Neville, Termo, Matt Williams, aka Ricky Slick, Jamie Snow, Brendan Ross, and well, Steve Burko hasn't set a time just yet, but this is his out lap as well. So interesting to note that all the FCR team cars are electing to sit this one just for a little bit. And they have a bad habit, these gentlemen. They tend to like to have a little bit of inter-team competition with each other and tend to go for one-lap dashes. We've seen it before in some of the other series they've raced. I don't know if they're going to go for it again, but probably a wise move to let all the other drivers have the track to themselves, and then they'll come out and they can spread themselves out a little bit more.
It'll basically be a nice little private FCR qualifying session. But what will be interesting is, yes, the inter-team rivalry, and I want to see actually what goes on and who's really the strongest FCR driver in at this track. We've seen Brendan Ross. He's been the strongest driver so far in the championship. He's taking out a win. So it'll be interesting to see how basically what the same machinery drivers that they're well acquainted with each other's strengths and weaknesses, and where they all end up on the lap time charts. We saw before Will Devonish's car when he ran off the end of the curve at turn 6. I think that really hurt his lap time. He was on track for a PB. It was going to be, not that much quicker. It was only going to be 300ths of a second quicker. Then he lost 6/10 of a second from that miscue. So hurt his personal best lap time. But Steve Burko here is just about to do his second flying lap. He's coming into turn 4. He's set a 51.4. Oh, he looks like he's locked up a little bit, but he's trying to maximise the speed that he gets from the straight. And we'll see at the second sector split whether or not that's actually hurt him. But here he goes around the curve straight. Car sort of dancing around. And yeah, he's still up on his PB, but he was on track for pole at the first sector. He's actually, I think that's the best sector split we've seen to the first sector. So we'll see how he goes. It's going to be a 51.5. So he's lost a lot in that last sector, I think. just a bit too brave under brakes. Maybe perhaps a couple of metres too late on the brakes.
Yeah, it looks like he got hung up on the curb between 6 and 7 as well. So you're right, he probably just drove it a little bit too hard into, as we watch Gary Neville end up in the fence. Yeah, he probably drove it just a little bit too hard into the hairpin there, so that's why it gave him the lap time that or the sector time that it did at that point in time. And then just sort of it improved, but he fell apart from there a little bit. So he'd probably be happy to be sitting up P6 at the moment with not too many other drivers left to go. Now here we go. So Jamie Snow and the FCR crew are looking like they're about to go out. So Jamie Snow's new livery for this round and moving forward, having campaigned one of the inbuilt Nissan Altima liveries at Albert Park. I think it was the Michael Caruso livery, if memory serves me correctly. And he's now got his own FCR livery here under the FCR banner, but the only FCR driver that is not a Commodore.
Good to see some variety as always, but I'm sure that makes it a bit tough in terms of aero setup. I mean, it's all equal in the game, but in real life that would be a bit hard work. But Jamie Snow, he actually sort of did light the world on fire in Albert Park when he was catching up to some of the drivers. They were crawling over each other, and he finished third in the final race, which was a good performance to see. But now he's in his new car, the Tacoma model car, number 14. So got a bit of a classic look to it. It's got the chevron at the back and a couple of racing stripes down the centre. So good look, nice understated burgundy livery. And we're going to see how much he maximises the braking point here into the first sector split. And he's down by
half second.
So that's his first flying lap. He'll get another lap after this. We'll see how he goes.
Yep, so he's got plenty of time to find at the moment. A half a second, but some of these drivers will try and set a half decent lap and then they'll really pull their socks up and have a go at it. Front end wiggling under braking. He had a little bit of a wiggle out of turn 2 as well when he came through to start this lap, so he probably did lose a little bit of straight line pace down to the turn 4 hairpin, and he's up to P8, so 51.6. So that little midfield pack is getting quite tight. So Snow and Cracker, and then you've got Steve Burko, Will Devonish, Brenny. They're all within that sort of half a second range of each other. So I think there's going to be quite a lot of action in this middle pack during the night. Through the hairpin for the second time, and he slices a quarter second off the PB, so that's quite a nice achievement. He's still a quarter second away from the pole time that was set by Brenton Foley. Still hasn't been toppled yet. Gary Neville has received a disqualification. Now, I'm not entirely sure what that's for. He did butcher his first flying lap, so maybe he's exceeded the lap count, or something's happened there, but he's going to start rear of grid.
Snow's overdriven the final corner. Oh, still he beats his PB, but he's lost the 10th in that final corner alone.
So he does advance from one side of the grid to the other in the same row. So he stays on row 4, just changes position ever so slightly as we cycle through. Still plenty of drivers that have not set times yet. So Glenn Miles is the last man at set a time. Gary Neville, unfortunately, as we said before, disqualified. So we've still got Brendan Ross, we've got Matt Williams, Termo, and Phil Boak, the only 4 drivers yet to set a time.
We've got 5 minutes remaining in this session. Grid
here we go.
Through...
And Phil Boak is out. So here we go. And the other half of PBF Race Engineering, this is actually going to be his first laps in anger in the race weekend tonight, because he's had a little bit of practice during the week, but he hasn't had a chance to get out there with the rest of the drivers in tonight's running. So he's looking at the times now going, okay, well, based on my practice performance, where am I paced, and or where am I placed rather, and can I improve? But he's got the whole track to himself. Not really an aero-dependent track here, Symmons Plains. You'd be lucky to get a little bit of a tow down the front and back straights. But it really doesn't add too much time or give you too much time benefit overall. It's all about your braking at the right zones, getting the car turned in nicely, not using too much curb where you need to. That's a lovely example of that. and not getting hung up on the curb, using all the road and almost some, and a little bit of a wiggle. And difficult braking zone for turns 1 and 2 as well. Now swings it through the right-hander at turn 3. Use all the available road. Moves it over to the right-hand side for the braking zone into turn 4. And the sector split time it's very good. It's just over a tenth off his teammate's pole time. And he'll carry that down this straight through turn 5, even though we call it the curve straight. The curve is classed as turn 5. And now can he pull it up straight? Again, a little bit of front end wiggle and a lock up. A little bit of front end wiggle just probably as he goes over the bump into turn 6. He'll get another crack at this, but this is looking like it's going to be a high 51, or it's actually mid 51, so he lost a lot of time. Where did he, so from the hairpin all the way to the start finish line, he lost 6.5 tenths there, Hans. That's a huge disparity.
I think it's because you overdrive into turn 4 because, I'll get a look at it now, he might have a front locking issue.
Oh, he's done the same thing Steve Burko did.
Yeah, front locking issue. On the previous lap, it was the front right, which we generally don't see locked at this track, but managed to lock it up there. And then on this lap, both the front wheels were locked. Definitely wasn't going to turn at all. So it did provide a gain on the stopwatch. Yes, it was a good sector split. However, you can see now that it is bucket loads away from the pole time and even his personal best lap time. So probably not the qualifying session he wanted to have, but still he's quite far down actually. He's firmly in the mid pack, so he's in that. I was going to say before, the grid's 6 to about 11. They're all quite closely matched. So Burko, Ross, Boak, Williams, Snow, and Rutledge. So if their race pace is indicated by their qualifying pace, it's going to be quite a close race, and they might have a little bit of trouble passing each other because no car has quite an advantage on the other.
Well, Brendan Ross and Matt Williams finding their groove at the back end of this session here, so they've already set some time. So that where do they improve or stay? Brendan Ross jumps right up to P2, and Matt Williams jumps all the way up to P4. So good job from those guys, leaving it right till the last minute. Well done. So that sets the cat amongst the pigeons quite nicely.
I think Foley is the only one in the 50-second bracket, so everyone else is in the 51s or after. So really impressive effort. 50.65 the pole time tonight for race 1.
Certainly is, and there's only one driver that is yet to set a time, and it's Termo. Now, he's not going to set a time by the looks of things because we're now 50 seconds remaining in the session, and he will not get out on circuit for this session, which means he won't get around. And if he went out now, he wouldn't get around in enough time anyway in order to set a time. So he will start out of second to last with Gary Neville, unfortunately, with his disqualification, which we didn't see, but you can see there it's got 4 laps out of 4 laps on the timer, which means he probably exceeded the lap count. He did have an issue into the braking zone at turn 1 and 2, and he may have thought that he might have been able to get away with setting another time with an outlap, but unfortunately that is not the way that it works.
Yeah, we saw him on his first flying lap. He just made a meal of it into the first corner, and he ended up in the fence, and we saw a wheel coming off, which 3 wheels on my wagon in qualifying is generally not a good indication of a good qualifying session.
No, certainly not. So Brenton Foley, your man on pole, and he'll be joined by Brendan Ross. So 2 men with victories under their belts already in this series, and they'll be looking to add another one tonight each. In actual fact, the top 3, Brenton Foley, Brendan Ross, and Mitchell Hathaway, the 3 drivers who have split the wins between them across the 3 races so far. So, as you said, Hans, the cream rises to the top, and that's certainly been the case tonight so far. Well, at this point in time, I'm going to introduce one of the regular racers who has taken part in. Well, he's done some commentary already, and he's done some Super 2 racing at Albert Park last time out. But unfortunately for him, suffering from a motherboard failure, and he's going to be our trackside reporter and monitor some of the incoming comments on the stream tonight, and that's Ben Rhodes. Ben, tough luck. You're going to be missing the next couple of races by the sounds of things, but glad to have you with us.
Yeah, it is a shame. I'd only just got my season started, and it took me 2 races to even get to finish a race. But look, I'll be honest, I wasn't super keen for Symmons. It was too time technical for me in practice. But it's better to be at a track and not like it than to not be at a track at all. So yeah, I'm out for the next couple of rounds at least until we can get the computer sorted. So yeah, I'm trackside for the time being, and look, from where I'm sitting, that qualifying session was looking pretty good. I got some already. I chatted to a few of the spectators, a few of the guys very excited about the racing, and actually got a few phone calls from drivers about updates. Mike Coulston and Mitch McGovern have both given me a dial and said that they will try and make it for the second race tonight. Mike Coulston is unfortunately stuck in a suppliers meeting that just drags on and on. And we all know about how business meetings go. So the second Scuderia Alitalia car will be out hopefully towards the end of tonight.
Well, it was definitely a new, I won't say it's a new team, but some familiar faces. But that Scuderia Alitalia livery on the Ford Falcons was definitely looking rather nice. They were running around in practice, but as you said, they're hoping to make the second race. We were actually going to have Brock Harvey in for a little while before this race got underway, but we've just been told he got told if he ended up getting on Automobilista again by his wife, he'd have to sleep in the simulator. So I take it that means that it's a case of happy wife, happy life. So he'll be rather pleased with how things went down last night with the TCAC first opening round at Interlagos. We had some great commentators taking the reins there in Chris Riddell and Michael Zalavari. They did a wonderful job for first up commentating, and actually got some really good racing to call as well. And that series is looking very, very interesting. And the drivers already reporting that they've never had so much fun and never had so many laughs in a long time. So good to see them going along rather nicely. And they're heading off to, I believe it's Barber Motorsports Park is their next event in a couple of weeks' time on a Wednesday. That broadcast is coming through the Short Shift podcast channel for those of you that are interested. Well, the driver's briefing at the moment has it's either underway or it's about to finish up, because there's a few drivers joining and leaving the chat where that normally happens, and it doesn't look like we've got anybody on the track at the moment. But Hans, this gives us an opportunity, I guess, to have a quick break for a minute or two, and then we'll come back and have a bit of a chat and predict what we think is going to happen. So for those of you who are watching the stream live, don't go anywhere. We will be back very, very shortly. Welcome back, everybody, to round 3 of the AMS Oz Super 2 series from Symmons Plains Raceway on the Little Apple Isle of Tasmania. One of 2 circuits down on the Apple Isle, Baskerville being the second one, although unfortunately not at a suitable grade track to be able to host supercars in real life, but it is playing host to the Improved Production Racing Association Nationals a bit later on this year, which a number of the guys from the Victorian State Series and other state series around the country will likely be heading to after their trip to the Bend last year. Well, Hans, we've got a good turnout again for the race tonight, so close to the 20 driver mark. We've sort of been averaging 18, 19, 20 drivers for the races that we've had so far. So it's not a completely full grid that we're used to seeing in real life at this location, but nonetheless it's still going to present some interesting challenges for these drivers. We've got the top 3 at the head of the field, all with a win under their belt, and they're all going to be looking for another race win, but who do you think is going to take this one out? Do you think it's going to be a case... keeping in mind too, there's no pit stops in the sprint race format. Fuel's not an issue, tyres are not an issue. Do you think we're going to see a 4th winner from 4 races, or do you think it's going to be probably one of the top 3 that'll break away? I mean, Foley's looking pretty good. He was quickest in qualifying and by some margin, but that's qualifying. Race pace is a completely different thing.
Yeah, I'm happy that Foley's got his internet issues sorted out, because it would be nice to actually see him complete all the races in a round, which would be nice to see. The top 3, I reckon their pace is absolutely miles ahead. They're fantastic operators, and they've really got their they're really hitting their strides at the moment, and they're all hitting their stride at the same time. So honestly, I would have to say it's one of the front 2 guys, so Brendan Ross or Brenton Foley. Hathaway, yeah, he's sort of there to capitalise if lap traffic becomes an issue. However, I don't think he's got the outright lap-on-lap pace. So we've got some live timing coming up. So we're going to have some live timing tonight, Stephen.
Well, hopefully we will. We've just seen it pop up, so it looks like whatever issue has happened in the last couple of minutes or so with live races has been resolved. So we do have our time in there. For those of you following along live at home, please feel free to go and jump onto amsoz.liveraces.com, click on the live tab up the very top, and you'll see the live timing from what we see around this circuit, broken up into 3 sectors. So from the start finish line all the way to the entry for turn number 4, the hairpin sector 1, sector 2 all the way from turn 4 round the curve at turn 5 to the start of turn number 6, and then sector 3 basically turns 6 and 7 and round back to the start finish line again. We've got just 2 minutes left in the warm-up session, so we will jump back over and see how things are going over on track. And we're just watching a number of the drivers that have decided to take to the track after briefing.
You can see on the rear wing of Cam Rutledge's car, #FollowMe. And I also noticed before, I didn't get a chance to say it earlier, that JB Correa's car has a hashtag on the back of it.
Yeah, I think it's got "I am driven." I think it is on the back of his car from memory, from what I've seen. Let's see if we can, if he's on track, let's see if we can pick him up. Where is he? No, he's in the pits at the moment. So we'll probably see it throughout the race. I'm pretty sure it actually says "I am driven" on the back. We actually tried to have a bit of a look at that #FollowMe before the night started, and we couldn't quite work out what it was. It seems to be a myriad of everything. You know, people just thinking that they'll be followed sort of thing. So we'll see how we go. A couple of late entries into the service. So the Brian Walsh has jumped into the Scuderia Alitalia car, so he's in. Cracker in as well, and Lime Mitch, who we're seeing on screen here in the Cam Waters Ford Falcon FGX liveried car. He was one of the participants last night in the hectic AMS Oz or Oz TCAC. Sorry, not the AMS Oz thing. It's the Oz TCAC. And sometimes those cars were 4 and 5 and 6 wide coming down the front straight into Lagos last night. So some fantastic racing there. And Lime Mitch was right in the centre of it all. So he's up the pointy end in that championship. So this will be his first foray into Super 2. And the clock just about to finish winding up, and we won't be far away from a race start. So a good turnout yet again. 19 runners at present. And I guess the big question on our lips is going to be, can the man who's had so many internet dramas over the course of time in Brenton Foley, reigning champion from last year, can he actually continue to hold it together? It seems like he's hit upon a solution, which is a 4G internet connection through his mobile phone, until he could get everything else sorted, because nothing else seemed to work. But stick with the proven thing, and away you go. Actual fact, he's a two-time TCR champion as well. I've actually wrapped that up, I believe, on Monday night just gone. So good job, Foley.
Yeah, fantastic to see Foley's wrapped up another championship. He's adding to his quite extensive resume in Automobilista racing. So good to see. But let's see if we can. I mean, he's really up against it in the Super 2 series because of the DNFs. But he does have the pace, and unfortunately, it's not reflected in the point score at the moment.
No, certainly not. He's got a lot of work to do. He's only got 150 points to his name, and that wasn't enough to put him on the top 12 page on our broadcast display a little bit earlier, but hopefully for his sake, his luck is about to change.
He's got his car on screen at the moment. It's not been a happy season so far. Defending champion, car 1. Obviously, when you get car 1, you want to make sure that it's you have a really good title defence. It's a big statement to be able to roll up to a race meeting with 1 on the door and 1 on the window. So it's unfortunate that he couldn't maximise that. And yeah, they're just heading for their warm-up lap now. So Brenton Foley, pole position, only man in the 52nd bracket, then followed by Brennan Ross in the 51s, but not too far away from a 50. So good to see he's continuing his strong form. So VF's front row, and then we've got Mitch Hathaway in his new car. That's HTS Racing Team, and then Ricky Slick, Matt Williams in the FCR, first of the FCR Motorsport cars. It's second of the FCR Motorsport cars. There's 3 of them tonight. Then we've got another new car tonight, JP Courier. That's the what's his number again? I can't even remember.
He's 55, I believe.
55. Yeah, I better get new glasses.
88, sorry.
88. Okay, so yeah, it is. Hashtag I am driven on the rear wing of that car. Then the second of the HDS Racing ZB Commodores. That's Billy Dougal Salonga in 6th place. He's in the Pro-Am category. Then the first of the CRE Motorsport cars. That's Will Devenish. He's running in Pro category. And then quite different to the HSV Dealer 10 car. Then we've got the Top Gear Racing Steve Burko. All his sponsors on the car, they've all got green as their corporate colours, so it makes quite a good synergy. Oh, we've got someone...
That's Jamie Snow.
Jamie Snow.
Jamie Snow's gone into the pits. We'll quickly around the top 10. It's Phil Boak, who's actually starting from pit lane, so he's missed the start, so that's where he will start. And Jamie Snow was P10, so positions 9 and 10 will be vacant on the grid. And those gentlemen starting from the pit lane, so that's a most curious observation.
So I'll just run through the rest of the grid at the moment. We've got Cam Rutledge in 11th, Cracker in 12th, Brownie in 13th, Sid Davis in 14th. That's in the Nick Burkett guest car. Brian Walsh and Glenn Miles in the Scuderia Alitalia.
Well, we're away, and Brownie's got himself a penalty, so not sure what's happened there. But off the launch, we didn't have a quite good look, but Foley got a bit of a tardy start, and it allows Brennan Ross quite easily up the inside into the first couple of corners. Matt Williams has made a move on Mitchell Hathaway as well for P3. So FCR cars storming to the front early. And down the inside here, Brennan Ross will take the defensive line for the first time in. Locks it up.
He's overshot the corner. So he's got absolutely no mid-corner speed there. Let's see if Foley can get around the outside. But he is on the wrong side of the road for turn 5. But turn 6, he'll put him in good stead for that corner.
Certainly will. A little bit of carnage back at the hairpin as well, but a couple of people hit the wall and a couple of cars coming together as well. And Boak and Snow look like they've been released from the grid. Well, who's that?
That's Williams. He's off the road.
Looks like...
Oh, not quite. He just locked it up. He looked like he was going to shoot into the back of Foley, so thankfully not.
Yeah, he managed to get it stopped and keep it on the blacktop, but he does cede position back to Mitchell Hathaway, so he's back to where he started. Oh, and that's he's got... That's Billy Dougal Solonga got into the back of him. I'm almost 100% sure that he ran into the back of him there. Probably just got a little bit too close for comfort. We'll pick up the action from the replay as they come around the final corner. We'll cut to the onboard cam. Going a little bit too hot, and actually it wasn't too bad actually, but just carried a little bit too much speed, did BDS, and that will most likely be a penalty after that is all said and done.
Real shame to see in the early part of the race. He's got pretty decent pace at the moment. He's staying up there in the top 5.
Yep, and Lime Mitch and Termo unfortunately have not started this race, or they've not finished, or something's happened, they've not finished the race. Actually, who's that coming out of the pits there? That's Sid. So Sid's gone a lap down already, so maybe some damage from the opening lap. It settles down for a little bit now. Brennan Ross from Brenton Foley, Mitchell Hathaway and Billy Dougal Solonga, and JP Courier's top 5. Followed by Devonish, Burko, Rutledge, Cracker and Brian Walsh, who's moved up into P10 for the very first time. Oh, there's a couple of cars going a bit wide there at the hairpin. And actually that was Sid going wide there, so he's running that livery. Probably just going there to get out of the way of Brian Walsh by the look of it. So this is our first look at the Scuderia Alitalia cars, to be campaigned by Walsh and Mike Coulston, who's not here tonight at the moment, as Foley sets the fastest lap in 51.056, and he's still in second place at the moment. Let's cycle back to the leaders and see what they're going on here, because Foley is still applying some pressure to Brennan Ross, trying to take that high line again.
He's locked up again, so they're all struggling getting into turn 4, and they're all fanning out. It's looking like the Formula V race at Symmons Plains in the Supercars event.
Yeah, the big loser out of that was Mitchell Hathaway. You can see in the back of shot that he ended up getting onto the high line and into the wall at turn 4, and has lost 3 positions, one to his teammate, one to Devonish and one to Courier. In actual fact, Courier didn't gain out of that. Devonish jumped him as well, so stays in a net P5, and now under pressure from Steve Burko's Mitchell Hathaway. As we said before, they've got different livery cars. Oh, and does lock it up there. That'll give Burko a bit of a sniff, but Burko got on the power a bit too early. But is he close enough to have a bit of a move here? He's looking, thinking about the outside. Hathaway's going to have to defend here. Burko down the outside, and he's got some overlap here, so they'll need to run side by side, and they get that done quite well, except that Burko probably didn't get the turn he wanted. Oh, there's JP Courier. What's happened there? Wow, it looks like he's come together with Billy Dougal Solonga, so that is a most unusual accident to see a car upended like that. What happened here? So Devonish was down the outside of BDS quite comfortably. And actually, there was contact, and wow, there we go. So that's what happened there.
Yeah, unusual. Yeah, unusual. Look, I thought it was going to be wheel-to-wheel contact, but what happened is that he sort of just double twist and pike into BDS's car. So BDS into the infield, and unfortunately JP Courier caught up in an accident that wasn't his doing. He just had nowhere to go, and up and over and back on his wheels again.
No, certainly not. And that's unfortunately put Courier out of the race as well. So he's out. And Matt Williams is out as well. So in all that little bit of carnage that we were watching with BDS and JP, Matt Williams, or Ricky Slick is his alter ego or personality disorder, whichever you want to refer to it as, he's dropped out of this race as well. So disappointing for him. He's not had the best bit of luck in the recent past. He's had a few disconnects from the GT3 series as well, but he's still up there in the points for Super 2, so we want to get back in there for race 2. Meanwhile, Steve Burko's found his way up 4 places into 4th and all of that, with the couple of drivers ahead of him tripping over themselves, and Foley, in all that carnage as well playing out, has found his way ahead of Brendan Ross now, up into P1. So the top 2 as they started this race. Devonish up to P3, Burko 4th, and Mitchell Hathaway slipped back to P5. So 7 of the 25 scheduled laps for this race about to be completed by the race leader. So we've got about, or just over 2/3 of this race to go. And local yellow just being cleared from the 3rd sector on this track. But looks like smooth sailing for Brenton Foley now. He's got a rather nice gap. In actual fact, was Brenton Ross gone? So that might have been what the yellow flag was for. Can we see what happened here? Oh, wow.
Oh, he's around. Oh, he's locked the rears.
Locked the rears, managed to get it out of the kitty litter. So a couple of unusual accidents happening rather early, and yeah, he cedes 2 places in that little exchange there. So not going according to plan for the FCR stable at the moment. We've got 1 retirement, a mistake from another, and Jamie Snow having to start from the pit lane, and Gary Neville, the shining light at the moment. He's found his way up to P8 after having started at the back.
Got a very high attrition rate in this race so far. I think partly because of those, there was about 4 or 5 cars. They're all in a line, and there was a cork in the front of the bottle, and unfortunately they all crashed into each other. So that's just what happens at this circuit when you've got big long braking zones, and it has that accordion effect or concertina effect. So you know, you're not far away on straights, and then you're just colliding into people because you're trying to maximise it, and unfortunately the gaps close up very quickly.
They certainly do. So top 3, Foley, Devonish and Burko at the moment. So Foley just appears to be cruising out in front at the moment. It said in the pre-race before we went live that he was targeting a lap time similar to what Shane van Gisbergen does in real life, or did around here for qualifying in real life, which he achieved. And as he goes and sets another quick lap, he's now under the sub 51 mark. So in the race trim, he's down to a 50.9. So he's really having fun out there at the minute. He's got a very, very nice margin of just over 4 seconds on Will Devonish at the moment, and who in turn has got nearly 2 seconds on Steve Burko. So that top 3 has settled down nicely, and Brendan Ross just settling into 4th place now. Just needs to bring it home here. And a bit further back, it's Cam Rutledge putting the pressure on Mitchell Hathaway here. So he's just been chipping away a little bit, picking up a little bit of a slipstream here if he's close enough to ZB Commodores. So he's one of the quiet achievers, Cam Rutledge. He's gone along quite nicely. He sits, I think, mid-range, or in the well inside the top 10 in the points after the first 3 races. So set to add a nice another haul here, if he can keep it on the blacktop. But the way Mitchell Hathaway's driving in a minute with the, as you can see it there, his car squirming under acceleration at the moment. Cam just driving it a lot straighter. So a little bit of over-abuse maybe, over-driving the car a bit too much. Maybe it's going to come back to bite him toward the back end of this race. I'm not 100% sure, but there's still plenty of time to go. You can see now Cam closes up a little bit more again, but took a little bit of grass, so he's going to be compromised down straight. In actual fact, he's lost a little bit of distance from the car ahead.
Let's see, the good thing about Cam's driving style is he's very smooth. He's not asking the car too much, and it's almost two different contrasting styles. We've got Hathaway, he's out of control everywhere, he's locking brakes, he's sliding, and Rutledge is just driving the car straight and trying to be as consistent as possible.
Absolutely. And that partnership with Will Devonish, I think, for Cam Rutledge, probably doing him a world of good too. He's got Will to learn off, who's a very, very fast driver himself. And Cam bringing that, I guess, the fast but smooth approach in his pursuit of Mitchell Hathaway. So meanwhile, back in the pack as we go through the field for the moment, Brian Walsh, the sole Scuderia Alitalia car at the moment, all on his own, in 7th place. Phil Boak has managed to recover from his pit lane start to start P8. Likewise, Jamie Snow, he's recovered from the pit lane start P9. So those gentlemen were starting 9th and 10th on the respectively in the grid boxes, but they've managed to get themselves back up to where they or thereabouts where they would have started. Gary Neville rounding out the top 10 at the minute. He's the big mover and shaker of this race. He's up 9 positions from where he started, and that was dead stone cold motherless last.
Yeah, really unfortunate to see. He had a lot of trouble in qualifying. He ended up in the fence at turn 1, and he's having trouble getting into turn 6. But ended up in the fence at turn 1, 3 wheels on my wagon, couldn't go anywhere. Tried to do another lap because he thought that he had only just started his first flying lap. He thought that he can get another one, but unfortunately it's not the way how qualifying works. And that was a rear of grid penalty. Probably would have put him towards the rear of the grid because he only did a 52, but it just put him a bit further back. But however, it seems that his race pace and his ability to put himself in the right place at the right time has been very good so far in this race. So coming up to the halfway point now, 13 of 25 laps and 11 minutes in. So we'll see how the attrition rate follows now, considering that the cars are spaced out all over the 2.3 kilometre circuit.
Absolutely. Local yellow in the final sector again. We've got somebody off, just trying to work it. Actually, it's who's in P9? It's Gary Neville has moved up to P9. So who was in P10? Actually, it's Jamie Snow. So Jamie Snow is out of this race. So that'll promote Glenn Miles around to P10 when he eventually gets to the line. He's also running new livery this weekend, the Spitwater car. Sid up into P12, and then BDS, the last of the classified runners, now being actually going 2 laps down to the race leader. He's the last of the classified runners at the moment as we cycle back to the race leader. So there he is, plenty of margin. In actual fact, the margin's come down a little bit, so it was out to just over 4 seconds. Will's just trimmed that a little bit down to 3.9. Foley on his way. Let's see if Will's continuing to eat into the advantage at the Sector 2 split. So it's 3.9 at the moment. And no, just eased out slightly, so maybe just a little bit of traffic there for Foley on that particular lap has just given him a bit of something to worry about for the moment. Devon is still in P2. Burko P3. The closest battle on track's actually Hathaway and Rutledge still. So here they are. He's driving the pants off that there, Mitchell Hathaway, pushing it for all that it's worth. The Stairs would say like a pregnant mother in the stirrups. And behind him, Cam Rutledge is just the nice and smooth approach, just waiting for that mistake to come. Although he did drive it a little bit deep in there, Cam Rutledge, and he's just starting to lose a bit of touch with Hathaway now. So he might need to pick up the pace a little bit sooner if he's to hope of advancing his position any further.
As we've got these 2 cars on screen, Steve, I'll ask you, do you know where the names on the windscreens come from in motorsport generally in Australia?
Well, enlighten me, young Hans.
Well, Cams used to have a rule that you could only display on the windshield banner the driver's name. Now, there was a very creative driver, which we all know if you follow Australian motorsport. That was Peter Jensen, the captain, Peter Jensen. He changed his name by default to NGK Jensen, so he could display NGK spark plugs on the windscreen banner to get around that Cam's rule at the time. So not long after they changed the rule, but in that time, NGK Jensen, Peter Jensen, decided that he wanted to change his name by default just to give NGK their sponsorship airtime. He's a very creative man, the captain. And yeah, just a bit of a story behind names on windscreens and why that seems to be such a feature of Australian motorsport in years gone by.
A lovely history lesson there from the man who out-engineers the engineers. Ben, if you're around, what are you seeing out there at the moment on track or through the pits in your travels?
I am. I'm just wandering through the pits now. I've been trying to catch up with a lot of the drivers. We've seen quite a few DNFs. We've seen 7 so far in the race. Glenn Miles is the most recent DNF from this race, but trying to catch the drivers, but a lot of them, of course, going straight to the trailer, straight to debrief about what happened and to hopefully improve things to not happen again in the next race. But ran into a lot of supporters out here, a lot of guys flying the calling the colours of their drivers. We've got Ricky Slick fans out here. We've got, I actually ran to Kurt Stenberg from the Automobilista Supercars Championship. He's down here watching this race. He's cheering on Will Devonish, and Tactical is flying the flag for Sid Davis.
Well, there you go. And just as we cut to Ben there to have a bit of a chat. We did see that Cam Rutledge, he was waiting for a mistake from Mitchell Hathaway, but he made one himself, unfortunately. He ran a bit too deep at turn 6, and that's put him now, or it's now doubled the amount of time that he has in terms of gap to Mitchell at the moment. So that might be settled with 7 laps to run now. Meanwhile, Brenton Ross has been chipping away and chipping away and chipping away at Steve Burko's advantage, and he's now got that gap down to half a second for the final spot on the podium. Foley and Devonish are pretty much stations as they were in terms of the distance between them. It's not getting any bigger and it's not getting any smaller. It's staying at that, or hovering around that 4-second mark, but this now becomes the closest battle on track. So Brenton Ross, winner in race 2. And Steve Burko really drifts it through that final turn there, and Brenton Ross sweeps around the outside and takes P3, and just like that, it's a change of hands.
Yeah, I mean, it was going to be a matter of time whether or not Brenton Ross got past, but Steve Burko, he's just perhaps it was a little bit of pressure and unforced error from Steve Burko. He just looped it in, almost went backwards into the corner, and thankfully he managed to catch it. He's on the rear bar now. Oh, he's getting a better run out of that corner, but unfortunately he's on the inside there. So let's see how the Ford matches up with the VF Commodore on the straights. And the Starbucks car, it's got a bit of mumbo in a straight line. It's a bit caffeinated, isn't it, with the Monster Energy sponsorship and the Starbucks both together.
He'll be high on caffeine, guarana, whatever you can throw a stick at him. He will definitely be very, very energised right now and trying to get back that 3rd place. But Brenton Ross has just managed to break it away a little bit now, got a second margin on the Ford driver. And they're both making similar mistakes in terms of their locking brakes and taking different lines, but he's got some good straight line pace, Steve Burko, but he's just a bit too far back to challenge at the minute. He's only got 5 laps remaining, and they're now coming up to some lap traffic, so the leaders have actually got starting to get through the lap traffic, and that's actually dropped the margin from Foley to Devonish down to just a hair over 3 seconds now as well, as they negotiate the traffic. So Foley's through the last back marker now, which is Sid in P10, and man who's in P9 at the moment is Brian Walsh, and he's quite a substantial amount up the road at the moment. So he's the last of the lap runners, Brian Walsh. So Foley's gotten around to lapping all the cars very, very quickly, such as his pace. Let's have a look back out in front and see how he's doing. So there he is, and you can see Devonish behind. He's got the gap now down. This is probably the closest it's been for some time, 2.9 seconds, but he's fast running out of laps, Devonish. He really needed the traffic to play into his advantage here. Foley just going about his business, leading almost every lap in this race so far. The first couple of laps it was in the hands of Brenton Ross. He made the pass when all the calamity was happening at the hairpin. It's been quite comfortable lapping in the mid to low 51s, Foley.
You occasionally see a 50.9 out of him. He's done a couple of laps in that range so far, but you know, 23 out of 25 laps. It's been quite a hell of a race, and Brenton Foley's just apart from the little speck, that the little asterisk that he didn't lead the first couple of laps, he's almost the lights to flag victory and fantastic effort so far, but we can't call it yet because anything can happen in Automobilista Australia Super 2, and Will Devonish is ready to capitalise. He's only 3 seconds away, so Will Devonish might be getting his first podium of the season.
Yeah, he's certainly looking like a good podium finish at the moment, Will Devonish, and he had a crack. He was also involved in that TCAC race last night, which was an absolute cracker of race number 1 and race number 2 for that matter of fact. So carrying over some form from Wednesday night into the Thursday night. But Foley's on the penultimate lap now, and he's been nothing short of sensational this race, apart from his tardy start and where he let Brenton Ross slip up the inside of him and take the lead for the first few races. Once he got that back, he's virtually been never headed. And Gary Neville, now the first of the lap cars down, so I'm not sure what's happened to him, but he was he's now been lapped by Foley as well. So the field is really well and truly strung out. In actual fact, 5th, 6th and 7th are relatively close as well. So Boak might not... actually, we're just actually having a word here. There's been a little bit of a mistake. So Mitchell Hathaway's made a bit of a mistake, and that's put Cam Rutledge back onto the back of Mitchell Hathaway for the last lap and a bit. And Phil Boak is not too far away if these two trip over each other. But the leaders commence the final lap. Let's pick him up. Here he is, down at the hairpin. Only 3 corners to go. And barring a mistake, he's home free.
Might be a bit of a formality now. Let's go back. Let's try and go back to that battle between Hathaway and Rutledge. It looks to be hotting up at the moment.
It is. Well, we'll just get the shot of Foley coming to the line, so he has that honour because he likes to watch the stream back, and he'd love to see himself here as he puts on the lights and will take victory in race number 4 of the Super 2 series, the first race tonight at Tasmania's Symmons Plains Raceway. Second to Will Devonish. Brendan Ross holds off a pass for Steve Burko for third, so Burko will end up 4th. Hathaway at the moment looks like he's set to hang on to P5. And Rutledge...
Let's see what Cam Rutledge has got. He's got one more corner to make it happen. And Hathaway's locked up, and it looked like it might give it a free kick to Rutledge, but Rutledge is not close enough. But a fantastic effort. He was catching up to him. And then we've got Boak in the last of that 3-car pack. So Hathaway 5th, Rutledge in 6th, and Boak a very lowly 7th. Impressive effort from Brian Walsh.
Absolutely.
In fact, in the Scuderia Alitalia car. Top 10 on debut for a new race team. Fantastic effort.
Certainly is. And out of the 19 starters for this race, we only got 11 finishes. So an almost half the field out of action. And Gary, that's not how you do donuts. You don't end up doing the donuts and then hit the wall. Reminiscent, I wouldn't say it's reminiscent of Will Davison at Townsville, but wrong end of the car.
Yes, definitely. I think it's more Shane Van Gisbergen at Surfers Paradise, except it was a bit more of a violent hit that Gary Neville just did. He looked pretty happy with his effort, though. I mean, that's good to see, passing 11 cars. It's just that you wouldn't need to pass all those cars if you weren't back there.
Absolutely. So a bit of an interesting race, that one. So some of the drivers that were starting in the pit lane managed to make their way up the field, and then they ended up having, Jamie Snow for one, ended up dropping out of that race. But then you look at Phil Boak, he started from the pit lane and he was right up there. So he actually managed to score some really, really good haul of points, despite the fact that he hadn't really turned a lap during much of that particular race weekend up until his qualifying session. So he's done quite well for himself. The top 3 are filtering through here at the moment. So we'll start with our race winner in Brenton Foley. So Brenton, you had a little bit of a tardy start off the line. You let Brendan Ross get up the inside of you for turns 1 and 2. But once you got back past him, you were never really headed.
Yeah, I normally struggle to start in these cars, especially if it's slightly uphill. I'm just not really that good at it. But yeah, we were fast in different places, and I knew if I got ahead and got a little bit of a gap, I could just kind of settle into a rhythm, because chasing him, I was starting to make a few mistakes and things like that. But yeah, he did make a mistake and run wide, and I managed to get up there a little bit, and we ran side by side through the whole kind of front half of the circuit, which was pretty awesome, and it's a good battle.
All right, you didn't have too much to worry about for the majority of that race once you got back past. Was the traffic did allow Will to come back to you just a little bit. It got the gap down to under 3 seconds at one point, but I take it that was the only real blip on the radar for you. It didn't look like you had too many mistakes.
Most of the traffic was pretty good. There was only 1 or 2 that was just a little bit awkward, but none of them were bad. A lot of it was actually my little mistakes. I don't know if you noticed it. There was a couple of times in the 6 that I locked up and ran a little bit wide and things like that. But it was mostly, yeah, my mistakes. It kind of just made me remind myself that I've got a little bit of a gap and I don't need to go at 110%. Calmed it down a little bit in the last 5 laps.
Well, you sure did. You've chalked up your second race win and 150 much-needed points for your championship defence. So job well done.
Thank you.
Second place man, Will Devonish. So Will, your first podium in this season, and good to do it in the not only the updated ZB Commodore, having driven the VF the last couple of rounds, but also with your partnership, I guess, with Cam Rutledge, and he had quite a good race as well.
Yeah, really happy with the new team. First time out, getting a second and a sixth, so yeah, really happy with the outcome, and happy I could actually finish the race without the computer crashing.
Yeah, you have had your fair share of problems in some of the series that we've run, mainly around the GT3 World Challenge. But you managed to get your way through the traffic quite well with all the carnage that was going on, and you just kept your nose clean, and the car came home without a scratch on it. No real troubles from yourself?
Yeah, no, it's tyres kept on the car for most of the race. Maybe lap 20 they started going off, so it was pretty easy to drive actually through most of the race.
Beautiful.
Most of the laps were within a tenth of each other, so.
Well, around a little tight circuit like this, that's what you need. You need consistency, and you've done that quite well. So job well done to you on second place.
Thank you.
And third place man, Brennan Ross. So Brennan, you had a better start compared to Brenton Foley. Managed to get past him for the race lead for the first few laps, and then you slipped a little bit back, and you had to earn it, work your magic over Steve Burko for that final podium spot in the closing laps.
Yeah, I did it the hard way. Pretty much echo what Brenton said. Definitely I got a good start ahead of him, and tried to get the little bit of a gap ahead of him, but he was pretty quick tonight. So I knew as soon as he'd pass me, he'd probably fly off, and then just making that mistake into the second last corner sort of stuffed it up, and it was probably lucky on my part that Steve Burko had a little bit of a drama.
Yeah, so Steve had a similar drama to yourself, not to the same veracity that you did. Did you just get caught out by the braking at the bump? From where our point of view was, it looked like under braking for the turn 6 when we spotted you going off, the car might have just got a little bit upset, and the back end come around a bit too aggressively.
Yeah, it's one of those weird ones where you know it's coming, but you don't know it's coming. So it definitely caught me off guard then, because leading up to that it was pretty consistent. So that one was a bit of a surprise, but I sort of just toned it back, heading into that for the rest of the race, and it definitely fixed it.
Well, you've added to your race win and your good run of points for the season so far. So keep it up, and best of luck to all three of our race 4 podium getters, and the first race for tonight's running of pair of races at Symmons Plains. And we wish you all the best for the second race tonight.
Cheers, guys.
Well, that's your top 3 from race number 4 of the season, and the first of 2 races tonight at Symmons Plains. So we'll be heading back to qualifying very, very shortly. They'll be advancing the session in a few moments. So Hans, out of the race that we've just witnessed, who surprised you the most in that one? For me, it's probably got to be, as you alluded to just at the end of it, on debut, what's his name? Brian Walsh, getting the Scuderia Alitalia inside the top 10. He's not in a large field. He's not a notorious position getter, but he kept his nose clean. Most importantly, when all the other cars around him were coming together.
Yeah, you're right there, Stephen. I'd say it's either Brian Walsh or Gary Neville, because, like you said, both kept their nose out of trouble and just drove around, almost just circulated for a bit and just finished the race, which was very important to get points in this championship. But good to see a new team up there in the top 10, and hopefully Mike Coulson can come join us later on in the season, or later on tonight, hopefully. So we'll see how that goes. But Scuderia Alitalia, good to see. It will be good to see 2 cars out there, and also well done to Gary Neville for keeping his nose clean after what was a disastrous start to his qualifying session with a rear grid penalty. But what a race, honestly. There was some pretty wild and willing action going on. It was on for young and old early, so hopefully it can be calmed down a little bit now that we all know who's got what everyone has in terms of their cars. So we're just waiting for the start of this qualifying session. Again, 2 flying laps. And Turmo's back in the session. I just noticed that Turmo, he says that he's had an accident at the start of the race, so he was a DNF, but that he ended up hitting Brian Walsh, actually. So Brian Walsh, somewhat lucky to finish, that he didn't get more damage from that collision with Turmo.
Well, it's certainly right. Well, they're out there now for qualifying 2 for the second race tonight. And surprise, surprise, the man who started the ball rolling for qualifying in the first race tonight is the same man who does it for qualifying 2 in JP Courier. And as you said before, Turmo, hopefully he's out there. Well, he was behind JP, and I'm not sure if he's had a little, or just laid off the gas going up the back, the front straight. We'll see if he pops up somewhere on our timing screens. Now, can JP lower the benchmark from what he set in qualifying 1, which I think was around the 51.6 mark. So he'd be looking to better that and advance his position so he doesn't get tangled up in any of those start incidents. And I guess one of the more unusual accidents he was involved in at the hairpin in race 1, where that car was on its roof after some side-to-side contact. And already out of the first particular race tonight, a couple of drivers having a little something to say to each other about some of the contact that's gone on. Mainly that contact we saw between BDS and Matt Williams in the opening couple of laps, which resulted in Matt Williams going around in a circle, and actually BDS finished in P10 for that race out of the 11 cars that finished. Created 51.5 to start with, so he has lowered his own PB for qualifying so far across the night, and got a margin over Sid at the moment as the first time start to come in.
The driving standards observer and the chief steward are going to be very busy tonight, judging by some of the driving. But I don't think it's particularly anyone's fault. I just think when you get 19, 20 cars on a small circuit like this, and particularly when some of them are having connection dramas and there's all varying sorts of issues with the game itself, that these things do happen. But it'll be nice to see a cleaner race and hopefully less attrition going on, because there are some very competitive cars that they didn't get to finish. But first flying laps coming through at the moment, and we've got JP Courier. He hasn't bettered his first flying lap, so he's going to be stuck with a mid-51 at the moment.
Oh, Brian Walsh got a bit deep there at the hairpin, so he wasn't on a course to improve his own time there, but he definitely does himself no favours by going a bit deep at the hairpin there. Not very many of the big names out on the circuit at the moment, so in actual fact there's only about a half a dozen cars total at the moment that are on the circuit. The top 6 is all that it is, and Cam Rutledge is about to, he was lighting up the screens for a little bit there, but he moves up to P2, so an improvement on his own PB. And now a couple of the heavy hitters, I think, starting to come out of the pits. I've just seen one of the PVF cars back there. I'm not sure who it is. As we look down the list, it looks like it's actually Foley, according to our screens. So Brenton Foley is going to come out in the middle of the session for a change, compared to, he was one of the early takers in the session, and I guess you can say survived the challenges from all the drivers that were trying to hunt down his time, but based on the times that he did, he had plenty of margin in hand and nothing to worry about.
Oh, you can see Cam Rutledge perhaps flipping the throttle a little bit too eagerly there. Lucky that he's in lap, but that thing almost looked around. He just backed it in the corner. But that's Cam Rutledge's qualifying laps done, and he's on a 51, just a touch under a 51.8, 51.797. Steve Burko now, looking at the caffeinated mobile, and also brought to you by BP and Android. So Top Gear Racing, number 5 FGX Falcon, is just about to start his first flying lap. Let's see what he can bring into the first corner. Let's see the braking performance. Not too bad at the moment.
It's very clean.
Yeah, really clean and really smooth as well. So, and he didn't take that curb as well. So I think that perhaps his lack of performance on the straight into turn 4 is because he was grabbing that curb at turn 3. Keeping nice and straight now. Car's not tramlining all over the road, no locking. He's hit the clipping point nicely, but he has clipped the outside wall, it looked like, but car just sort of adjusted its path ever so slightly as he comes through turn 5. Big fast run, getting ready for turn 6. Then we're going back through the gears, 3 gears down from 6th into 3rd. Flip the throttle, and yeah, he's got a bit of damage on the right door, so he did end up wiping the wall there.
He'll come to the line and set a time. It's going to be in the mid-52s. It's a 52.5. And while we're watching Steve Burko, Brenton Foley went straight to the top of the timesheets with a 51.1. So let's pick up our provisional pole sitter. He's on the run down to turn 6. Getting sector split second time now. Quarter of a second up on his own time, so he's set to go back into the 50 or the sub 51 second mark. Doesn't use all the road, surprisingly. Takes a shorter path, and in actual fact finds some more time.
Fantastic time, 50.8, and then Will Devonish has come up on his first flying lap, 51.3. Let's see if he can better that lap time now. We didn't quite get the first split. Actually, yes, the first split, 19.2 seconds for the first split. Let's have a look at the second split. He's ever so slightly away from his PB in the session, but he's about 3.5 tenths or more behind Brenton Foley. And there's a local yellow on track. Could be a car coming onto the circuit, we're not sure.
Just knocked a couple of tenths off, hundredths off his PB there on the last sector, Will Devonish. So provisional second place. And we've only got 11 drivers. Actually, we've got 12 drivers have set a time, but we've just lost one of those drivers for the moment. We're just trying to work out who that driver happens to be. It looks like it's Lime Mitch. So he was up around P4, P5 for a little while there. So he hasn't, or either have some sort of drama, or he will be hopefully taking part a bit later. So Glenn Miles has just set his PB. So he's got a 54.3.
I think Jamie Snow is just about to come across the line and complete his first flying lap. Let's see what he's got, 51.8. So he's a bit more than a second away from pole time, but hopefully he can have a better race, because I think we sent Ben from the pits down to gather what's happened to Jamie Snow's car. Ben, do you have any news for us?
He's off enjoying
Unfortunately, sorry, I just got in. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to actually catch up with Snow. Did have a chance to catch up with a couple other drivers from the mid-pack who unfortunately did DNF that first race. Both Glenn Miles and I believe it was Termo both did an engine. Termo did an engine off the start, unfortunately hit the wall. I believe I'm paraphrasing here in saying there was a bloody falcon in the way of Brian Walsh, unfortunately, off the start that good heroes for him. Glenn Miles was a bit too happy on the downshifts, and actually Steve Burko was so close to blowing an engine as well out of 4th position, which would have absolutely hurt for him because he was holding third for a long time. I'm also hearing some rumours that Ricky Slick was none too pleased at all with that race 1 spin. There is threats of I believe of a race ban if anyone uses, and I quote, his bumper as a brake marker. So yeah, things getting a little testy at one of the pit lane.
Thank you, Ben, for getting that information for us. Good to see you enjoying a little walk around the pit lane. As we see on his first flying lap, Billy Dougal-Salonga, he's done a 51.006. He's only 6 thousandths away from getting into the 50.9 second bracket. Let's see what he's got on his second flying lap. He's only got the last, this is his last chance to get something done, and he's about 0.3 of a second away. So I don't think he's going to get that back, and unless something amazing happens, and no, he's lost another 10th in that sector. So provisional second place for Billy Dougal-Salonga, just on the cusp of a 50-second lap time.
His teammate pops up into P4 as well. So the HDS racing cars come into play again in this second qualifying session. They were up Mitchell Hathaway was up to P3 in qualifying for race 1 tonight, and for race 2 he's up that end again. But I think BDS will have a bit of a point to prove. He will want to be as far away as possible from Matt Williams after they're coming together in race 1, and as Ben rightly pointed out, and as we alluded to, as qualifying was getting underway, it seems like the stewards will be busy investigating that particular incident. Now, who have we got left that has not set times yet? We've got Phil Boak, Brennan Ross, Ricky Slick and Gary Neville. So 3 of the FCR cars plus Phil Boak yet to set a time. And Lime Mitch hasn't managed to get back into the server just yet.
We're just getting some news now that Mike Coulston is actually going to come in after quali. So good to see the second of the Scuderia Alitalia cars coming in. And hopefully they can put on another good performance in the second sprint race tonight. So I think that's Phil Boak is just about ready to come out of the pit lane.
Yeah, here they come, and here comes Brennan Ross and Matt Williams. So they're on the pit lane speed limiter right now, and I think you're right. Phil Boak more than likely is out there as well. Yeah, there he is. He's on the way down to turn 4, so he's got the track to himself. Now, Brennan Ross and Matt Williams used the track to great effect in qualifying 1. In actual fact, I think they might have used the slipstream to quite good effect as well. So we'll see if they can replicate their feat in this session. They've got 3 minutes and 30 odd seconds to go. Plenty of time around this little bull ring to get a qualifying lap or 2 in. Let's pick up Phil Boak. So he's going to set the clocks on running now. Straightens that line as much as he can into turn number 1 and 2.
He's
but
run up the road there, so I think he's aborted lap. He's just gone wide at turn 3 and he's just going to reset. It might look like he's going to reset. He might not continue it because I think that's really put pay to his lap time. Let's see what the initial split is like. So he's 1.5 seconds away. He's out of it. So 015, the PBF race engineering car. They're going to reset and final chance. No second chances for Philip Boak at the moment.
Nope, certainly not. So he'll at least put a time on the board, but it's not going to be representative of what we know he's capable of. Meanwhile, behind him, Matt Williams, Brennan Ross going at it, and they've put some relatively. No, Brennan Ross has put a fairly decent first sector together as Boak goes P11, and we wait to see where's Brennan Ross and all this. So here's Brennan Ross. Here's the next man across the line. Half a second down on the pole time at the moment. Jumps up into P7, and Matt Williams goes into P9, and that just leaves Gary Neville yet to set a benchmark time, and he's well off the Sector 1 split, so he's probably had a bit of a scruffy opening sector to his first flying lap. But nonetheless, let's see if we can pick up where's Phil Boak and all of this. So he's down to P13 actually, but he's found a lot of time. In actual fact, he's found a ton of time. He's not that far away from pole. And he goes P2, so it's a provisional PBF race engineering front row lockout at the moment, if it stays the way that it is. Now, Gary Neville goes P14, and if we look for Brennan Ross, he's found some time as well, so he should advance his position, and he does. He advances to P4, and Matt Williams stays P9. So the only man yet that to improve his time or to complete his full allocation of laps is Gary Neville. Now he's found some time down at the hairpin too. That's a much better representative time from him. In actual fact, that's very, very good from what Gary's done in the past. So he's looking set to move up into the top half a dozen slots here quite comfortably if he can keep this together. What has the Sector 2 split got to say? Does it agree or disagree with him? I'd say that probably agrees with him. That's actually tracking quite nicely, but he's got to get these last couple of corners right. He was away from the apex at turn number 7, but uses all the road. Gets himself inside the P10, so just fell away a little bit in that last sector. But that's still a good result for Gary Neville.
Yeah, good to see he's not got a penalty this time, which is
oh dear,
probably going to be more indicative of his pace. And we see Brendan Ross, he's doing some circle work. He's still got all his wheels attached, and I think that's
Matt Williams.
Richard Slickus.
The
Matt
third.
Williams. Yeah. Sir Richard of Slick, the third.
Well, we come to expect these sort of shenanigans from the FCR team over the course of time. But 2 poles from 2 qualifying sessions for Brenton Foley, and he's got a roll going on at the moment, so he's put 2 race wins together on the trot now. He's looking for 3, but his teammate alongside of him is no slouch. He's got 2 second-place finishes to his name on the season so far, and he's going to be looking for 1 step better. But we did see before that Foley has the tendency to have a little bit of a tardy start, and even he admitted he struggles to get these cars off the line at the start of the race. So not a fan of the standing start, more accustomed, I guess, in GT from the exploits he does on the Sunday nights, the alternating Sunday nights, to the rolling start. And for those of you who are familiar with the broadcasts and tune in, we have got the 90 minutes of Sepang coming up on Sunday night. So the second of the 3 Asia Pacific races taking place in the GT3 World Challenge before we head off to the 2-hour event at Yas Marina in a couple of weeks' time. The weekend after the Anzac Day weekend, I believe that one's going to be on the 28th. So some good races coming up across all the broadcast channels of AMS Oz and myself here as well.
Plenty of variety at AMS Australia. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Absolutely is. And something that caters for a lot of drivers and a lot of nights of the week that allow people to come along and race and still keep their normal commitments as well. So we try and look to keep that going in coming months. As we said before, and a couple of times, some new series will be coming to hand a bit later on in the year. Provisionally, and a number of the drivers know about this already. Some HQ Holdens are going to make some appearances toward the middle of the year. Some items being finalised there, and the comment coming back from some of the drivers was, are they particularly boaty? And the answer is yes, absolutely. They are boaty as all boaty can be. Boatier than Boaty McBoatface.
Definitely. It's, if you had it in the, I mean, we did see them race in the rain at Phillip Island, and they were quite good boats. They're not too bad, are they? But they've got the all-weather tyre, and they've got three-speed gearbox, 202 red motor Holden engine, and you know, those things scream their head off. It's basically like a really, really old saloon car. It's fantastic.
Absolutely is, and it was even being nicknamed the 3 on a Tree series. As opposed to the HQ Holden series, but that's looking to come onto the screens of AMS Oz probably after the GT3 World Challenge is over, and also the Le Mans 6 Hour is over as well. So we don't want to try and make those series overlap or happen at the same time, because it sounds like it's going to be rather popular. The 2-time series Super Series champ and then Porsche Cup champ Brenton Hobson's already put his hand up saying he's definitely keen, and I'm wondering if he's gone scared a few people away, because we know that any sort of car Brenton Hobson gets in, he's blindingly quick. And I think a lot of people would relish the challenge of trying to knock him off, but I think a lot of people are just looking at it going, this is a really, really cool series. It's something that's a bit a bit abnormal, and I think they're just looking to get out there and have some fun.
Yeah, I think what's going to be really interesting is that you're going to get a heap of drivers. They're all going to complain, this car doesn't turn, this car doesn't accelerate, this car doesn't brake. And it's just, no, it drives fantastic. All the HQ drivers, when a non-HQ driver jumps into an HQ and test drives it, they say, oh, you know, it drives terribly. It just drives like junk. It doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. And then the HQ driver's like, oh, okay, give us a look. Let's see what happens. And then they go out and do a lap, come back in and says, no, it just drives fantastic. Absolutely pristine, and it's just the unique nature of the HQ Holden Kingswood that they get worked pretty hard. Like you said, 3 on the tree. It's harks back to a time gone by, And hopefully, maybe we can see some Thunderdome action as well, because they did originate from Thunderdome racing and have since branched out into all forms of circuit racing, which is fantastic. But HQs in real life, they're still around. They're still, parts are becoming hard to find, so it might be good that they go virtual. Maybe we should get the HQ series commentator Dave Amor. We should get him. We should get him on Automobilista. It would be good to see his booming voice in the Automobilista Australia commentary box.
Yeah, looking forward to catching up with Dave Amor. It's the State Series at Phillip Island coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and if we had that on a virtual world to present to him, I'm sure it'd bring a tear to his eye. He's, for those of you who are not familiar with Dave Amor, he's a very, very passionate man when it comes to HQ Holdens in the Victorian motorsport scene. Someone who's familiar with the Victorian motorsport scene and probably looking forward to jumping into a HQ at some point is Benjamin Rhodes. Ben, what have you learnt from qualifying number 2? Is all happy in pit lane land, or have we still got a few drivers making a few complaints about how much faster they could have gone?
Look, we're pretty much mostly happy for the most part, which is good to see. It shows how crazy some drivers are. The big discussion point was not lap times or the fact that the blue flags are becoming quite prevalent in this race. Most of the pit lane grouped together to have a discussion on the new the new Nick Percat Brad Jones livery, the 711 car, of all things, in the middle of a warm-up session. So, look, it's positive discussion. It's not exactly on topic, but it does show you do have to be a little loopy to be a quick driver. But yeah, as far as I can tell, all camps are happy coming into the second race.
Well, that's a good thing, especially seeing that tensions were high at the back end of that first race after the couple of collisions that had occurred. So good to see that they're all just starting to get a grip on things and just settle down and look forward to race number 2 for tonight. What are you finding from comment land in terms of any of the supporters that are out there? What's being said at the moment?
Well, actually, it's sort of really well at the moment. I think everyone has taken the time in the break to go and sample some local produce and fuel themselves up. I've actually done the same. Unfortunately, none of the fancy stuff you associate with Tasmania, none of the sort of nice seafood or maybe some lamb. I've instead sampled some nice Tasmanian poured Cadbury. But yeah, I think most of the fans are off getting some nibblies. But yeah, we have heard that Mike Coulston is in, so it means that both of the Alitalia Scuderia Alitalia cars are going to be on track for race 2. And it was a great finish for Brian Walsh in race 1. So hopefully we'll see both the Alitalia cars up the front for race 2.
Well, we hope so, and we've got a PBF front row lockout for the second race as well. Noticing also some comments in the stream that the first race, you're right, wasn't particularly thrilling. Once a couple of the passes were made early and once all the accidents early were all over and done with, there wasn't a terrible lot of excitement on track. Some of the battles did close up toward the end, but those drivers ran out of laps, and this circuit being so short, you really do need to have a driver ahead of you make a mistake to even have any sort of real chance to make a pass stick or to advance your position in any way, shape or form. There's not really a lot of passing opportunities apart from turn 4 and turn 6. But hopefully we'll see a bit more passing. We've got 3 minutes in qualifying, in the warm-up remaining. At the moment we're just watching the 2 PBF cars just lapping around at the moment, so we may as well jump back over and see how things are going in the land of the Apple Isle. No drivers briefing for the second race because it all takes place at the beginning of the night after qualifying 1 is over, and about the same amount of cars that were on track to run the warm-up for before race 1 are on for race 2 as well tonight. So quite a number of people just opting to take the time and just sit down and just either, as Ben was saying, discuss real-life motorsports, or B, go to the toilet, get a bit of a feed into themselves, and get back in time for a race start.
you what, I'm craving some KFC right now. But there's not quite enough time to run down, so obviously I need to go and run back and, after the race finishes.
No, well, you can go and have your KFC after the race finishes, I think. I'm not sure. I haven't got a hankering for KFC at the moment. I'm hankering for bed in about 35 to 40 minutes time.
Oh, look at Foley. He's just having some fun with it. He's just drifting around the outside of turn 4, which looks pretty good.
Oh, there's a wheel going.
And I like the chopped sticker on the rear bar. I think that looks fantastic. Anyone who watches Mighty Car Mods.
I just seen a loose wheel go bouncing across the back of shot as we were watching these two, and I can't see who it's from. That car's obviously gone off the track now, so we're not 100% sure why the wheel was bouncing there, although we did see some shenanigans at the back end of that qualifying session from the FCR teammates, so maybe they're at it again. I don't know. I'm not blaming them. If they are, they can feel free to do whatever they like, just as Foley is feeling free to do whatever he likes by giving his teammate a nudge in the rear bar there at the hairpin.
PBF's panel beater, they're going to get a lot of work tonight, and they're going to see that it's basically the exact same paint that's scratching on the other surface.
Well, I know that PBF stands for Phil Boak and then obviously Brenton Foley, but I thought for a minute there it was the PB was going to stand for panel beater. Just a little bit of a frame rate jitter there as a couple of drivers are making their way back into the session. And I think we are, as we cycle through the field,
there we go, Mike Coulston, he's made it.
He's made it. He's made it indeed. Okay, we will cut away from that. Obviously, a few people are just waiting for this session to finish. And there we go. So the session is over. The clock has gone to zeros. And now we're finally going to get a start as the cars will start to grid up for race number 2 tonight. That's the hardest part about this broadcast, is that we've got to find some time to fill in while all the drivers decide to have their drivers briefing, go out and cut a few laps before the race actually starts. So sometimes we tend to take a break like we did earlier in the night, and sometimes we just tend to waffle on.
We just waffle on about anything here. It's great, isn't it?
It's fantastic. All right.
Something a bit more on topic now. Slightly more on topic. Everyone was talking about the 7-Eleven Nick Percat car. Let's see if we can predict how many liveries Nick Percat's going to have this season. What do you reckon? Give us a number, any number.
Well, how many ones has he transitioned through already? He's had a different sponsor on the car at every round, hasn't he?
Yep.
Well, how many rounds have we got? We've got about, similar sort of thing, we've got about 15 rounds, but I don't think it's going to be that many. I think he's probably going to have, I'll say, a dozen.
I'm going to probably say about 8, because I think some of them would like to come back, some of the sponsors would like to come back, and I guess it is region specific.
Keep in mind, they've also got to go across the ditch to Tasmania as well, so they might get a local sponsor over there too, so that throws up some potential changes as well. But enough about liveries. Let's look at a livery of a Red Bull PBF Race Engineering pole sitter of Brenton Foley. So he won race 1. He'll be looking to go back-to-back race 2 tonight. He starts alongside his teammate Phil Boak. So PBF lockout on the front row. First time for the series. BDS had a bit coming together with Matt Williams in race 1, so he's well away from him at the moment in P3. Brendan Ross started on the front row last race, ended up P3. He starts out of P4. Will Devonish P5, and alongside him the second of the HDS cars in Mitchell Hathaway P6. Actually a nice livery on both those cars. Jamie Snow, he was meant to start row 5 last race. He ended up starting from the pit lane, so hopefully he starts on the outside or the inside of row 4 this time around. JP Courier with a better qualifying session this time around. Starts out of P8. And we've got a pair of FCR teammates on the 5th row of the grid. Matt Williams and Gary Neville. And then working our way through the remainder of the field, because it's a very short lap here. Got Cam Rutledge in the second of the CRE Motorsport cars. Steve Burko a bit further back, but he did have a good run through the traffic in race 1. He's had a P12. Followed by Brownie and Cracker, the teammates on the 7th row. Brian Walsh, the first of the Scuderia Alitalia cars. with Turmo alongside him out of 16. Sid P17, Glenn Miles is 18, and the last man coming into the server late, the 66 of Mike Coulston, the second of the Scuderia Alitalia Falcons. Oh, and Jamie Snow's in again. What's going on here?
Engine failure. Could be engine failure. You see trail of smoke coming from that, so it's probably one of those randomised engine failures, possibly. Oh no, that's actually rear brakes. So there's rear brakes are blowing on that. I don't know why he's in the pits again. Maybe he's just trying to avoid the carnage on the first lap, but it does put him quite a bit behind.
We'll just pan our camera down to see if we can pick up the race start here this time around.
Hear the red lights coming on.
And how does Foley go with the start this time? Gary Neville gets a drive through penalty, we're not sure, but Boak got a brilliant start from the outside of row number 1, and he will lead into turn 1 and comfortably puts his teammate down to P2. Who's that? One of the HDS cars went wide at turn 1 as well. I'm not sure if that was Hathaway or if it was BDS, but it looks like it was BDS, because Brendan Ross has moved up into P3 rather quickly. And PBF still hold the top 2 spots from Brendan Ross. Then it's Billy Dougal-Solonga, Mitchell Hathaway, Will Devonish, JP Courier has moved up to P7. Matt Williams has moved up to P8. Cam Rutledge has slipped back down to 9. Gary Neville stays in 10th, which is where he started. All clean so far. Doesn't look like there's any real calamity down at the hairpin. And Jamie Snow has exited pit lane, so looks like he's all right to go. But again, I'd like to find out from him at the end of the night the reasons for starting in the pit lane. There's a big wiggle.
Brendan Ross, big moment there. And I just noticed that Will Boak, a lot better start than Foley. Foley doesn't like the uphill start and the standing start here. So, yeah, Brendan Ross, bit out of control going to turn 1, possibly not flipping the throttle enough, so a bit of compression locking there. Oh, and the PBF cars are getting front rear nose job there, so coming together with the concertina effect down at turn 4. Then we've got we've got the PBF 1 and 2 at the moment running line astern, then an FCR car, and then the 2 HDS racing cars. So looks like they're all flying in formation.
Oh, Foley down the outside. Foley down the outside. Boak's got the inside here, but Boak will hold on to the position for a little bit. And this is music to the ears of Brendan Ross behind, and also BDS, who is caught up after his tardy start. I wonder if Team Order... Oh, was there a touch there? Was there a touch there? Because Brendan Ross is off the road. Was BDS involved again? We're about to find out. We're going to go and take a look at this replay and see if we can pick up what exactly happened, because that was rather unusual for Brendan Ross. He didn't probably expect that he was going to be going off the road there at turn 1. Let's see if we can see what happened. He had a bit of a tank slapper moment there. No, he did it all on his own. He did it all on his own.
Same thing as lap 1, so possibly not flipping the throttle enough.
No, potentially not, but that's reminiscent of his incident he had down at this part of the track in race number 1, where the car got away from under brakes, and look at the front end squirming away under brakes. He's really struggling to pull that up by the looks of things. It looks like he's got a right handful of a car there under brakes, so he's now back down to P8, so he lost 5 places out of that.
Yeah, an absolute shocker of a start for Brendan Ross so far, but it's definitely not indicative of his pace. I think he just needs to keep his head down now and just drive the car as straight as he possibly can and try and make it back up to the leaders. As we see, Devonish, he's trying to maintain a watching brief on the HDS cars. Let's see if he can get past them. He's got some good speed on board the CRE ZB Commodore. We can see hashtag follow me on the back. So funnily enough, JP Courier is going to get face full of that. Hashtag follow me. Hashtag I'm driven.
Absolutely. Bill Boak with the quickest lap of the race so far. Now I'm wondering if there's going to be any team orders down at PBF Race Engineering, given there has been a little bit of Morse code on the rear bumper from Foley to Boak in the opening laps of this race. It seems to settle down at the front now, and the battle is now for these third, fourth, fifth and sixth place at the moment. Matt Williams just hanging off the back in P7 at the moment. As who's that there? That's Mitchell Hathaway being challenged by Will Devonish at the moment. Courier having a good start, being out of trouble at the moment. and running in his best position in the series of P6. Now Devonish down the outside, he's looking down the outside, he's got a little bit of overlap, but Hathaway has the high ground and the inside for turn number 6. So if you're going to make a passing move stick there, you've got to do it down the inside, and Hathaway was very astute and observant and covered off that avenue of attack rather early.
Yeah, some good defensive driving there by Mitch Hathaway. But it looks like we're going to get another sort of battle pack like in race 1. So 4 cars at the moment, and it looks like Matt Williams might be joining on the end of this group soon. So Billy Douglas along, he might be the cork in the bottle here. Let's see if he lets his teammate by, and then the cork will firmly go back in the bottle when Devonish comes up to pass him. But Devonish, he looks like to be the pick of this group at the moment. He's got quite good speed, and he's going to get some overlap here. Not quite. He shows the nose. Was there a touch there? We'll have to look back at the replay. But, ever so slightly would have been corner-to-corner contact.
Yeah, we'll pick up the replay and have a look at that, but I think they were both squirming under brakes heading into turn 6. I think there may have been a very, very slight touch. Let's go on board. Will definitely later on the brakes, and yeah, a little bit of touch late there as well, so just moved him over under braking. So we'll see how that one pans out. There's still plenty of time to go in this race.
A little bit offline though, so perhaps the stewards will look upon that favourably. Billy Douglas along, he's managed to get past Brenton Foley, and we've got a bit of information coming from the pits that Mike Coulson, he's had a blown engine, so downshifting a bit too early possibly, it's caused a blown engine.
Well, this is a replay. We're just trying to see what happened to Foley, but it looks like he was actually passed before our replays picked it up, because Devonish had to go at him to the hairpin, and Foley was already behind BDS at that point in time. Phil Boak's checked out here, so Phil Boak's got quite a nice margin at the moment. Local yellow flag down here at the hairpin, so there'll be no passing, although Foley's gone very, very deep, and that's really allowed Devonish to get on the inside here. It's for Gary Neville. Gary Neville was off the road between turns 6 and 7 a little while ago. Foley manages to hold on here, hold off the threat of Devonish for at least the next couple of corners.
He's locking the inside front, and I think he's got a bit of dirt on his tyres, so that's definitely not helping him at the moment. Struggling a little bit, he's going backwards. Hopefully he doesn't lose another position, because his championship really needs all the points he can get, and every position really does count when it comes to Foley's defence of his number 1 plate at the moment. But Devonish, he looks like he's continuing some of that pace. He's got some good speed on board the CRE electrical Commodore, and yeah, Foley's still struggling. Devonish not quite close.
Oh, who's in the wall? That's Hathaway in the wall. So Hathaway in the wall, and he then allows Matt Williams to sneak up into P6. So just watching and waiting, and you pick up positions through the mistakes of others. That's precisely what Mr. Ricky Slick in the 37 has done.
That car of Gary Neville has been recovered, and DNF for Gary Neville. So sad way to end the night for one of the.
Oh, Matt Williams goes deep. He goes deep. He did a similar thing to what Brendan Ross did. He went deep, but he did it all of his own accord again. He didn't get out of control, but just late braking. Oh, and Ross just shoots through the gap very, very quickly as well. So like that, 2 places are lost yet again at that turn 1 and 2 complex, and just locking the brake there as well. So not the best pair of races so far for Matt. We always call him perennial position getter, because he always seems to make up a lot of positions, but it hasn't gone according to plan for him tonight. He's only made up 1 play. He was 3 places up on his starting selection, but he is now only 1 ahead of where he started.
And looks like Foley's gotten past Douglas Alonga, so we'll go back to that battle. He's only just in front of him at the moment, and huge battle pack here. So we've got all these 3 cars all crawling all over each other. So
that BDS is gone.
He's in the fence.
He is. He's in the fence, and he is more than likely out of this race. So Hathaway's through.
Oh, I saw a wheel come off and a whole bunch of panels come off as well. So let's see if it's DNF.
Well, it looks like there's a DNF here. Let's catch this on the driver's helmet cam. Let's see what happens.
Couple
yeah,
cars
wheel
were
goes
sliding
off.
there, so yeah, wheel off, over and out. That's done.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. So that is the end of his race. As we cycle back through the field, we pick up our race leader. He's got a very healthy margin at the moment. Let's go back to this battle going on. That puts JP Courier into third place overall as well. So he's now managed to sneak past Devonish while we were watching that replay. The replay of BDS going off at that turn 3 was a little bit unusual. Didn't look like he did anything too wrong. This looked like he advanced the throttle quite nicely. Maybe got a little bit of a wheel on the grass or something there to spin it around. But while we were watching that, the 88 has moved ahead of the 15 and is now doing his best to hunt down Foley. Now they've got some lap traffic here in Glen Miles and he knows better. He should just get out of the way here. He goes to the high line and tries to let them through, but that's not the spot where you want to be, and he now rolls out of the throttle, and that's a smart move to do. Good driving, Glen Miles. Gives the preferred racing line to the faster ZB Commodores coming through. Devonish hasn't given up this fight yet for P3. Still over, just on half the race to go now. JP will be grinning from ear to ear if he can hold this. He's known for his iRacing, but this would be potentially his first podium in AMS Oz race competition if he can hold it together. Doing a good job so far, but he's going to have his hands full for the next 13 laps, or 12 and a half, I should say.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. We got both the chrome cars together with hashtags on the rear wing. So let's see if Will Devonish can continue his run of podiums, and let's see if he can get his second podium. But JP Courier, he's got a lot of pace on board the 88 ZB Commodore, and he made a very opportunistic move, very impromptu, just decided to park it in there, and he did manage to get around him when there was a bit of traffic and a bit of chaos going on. So good move there. And you've got to take those opportunities when they present themselves, and sometimes it is in those messy situations.
Well, they're not really making very many inroads into Brenton Foley, so both Devonish and Courier were a tenth of a second slower than Foley on that particular lap, and they're already 2 seconds behind, so they need to pick up the pace a little bit and sort of go with Foley if they sort of do better times than what he's doing, if they're going to have any hope here, because I don't think Foley's going to make very many mistakes in the remaining half of this race. In actual fact, the fastest lap of the race is still Brenton Foley with a 51.107. His teammate 51.132 are the two quickest laps out there at the moment, shared by the PBF teammates. Now, I think Courier might just be a little bit vulnerable here if Devonish was to stick his nose up the inside here at the hairpin. Just shows the nose. Maybe just trying to lull him into a false sense of security. We saw Heath Dixon do that with great effect at Suzuka a couple of weeks ago. Is that Hathaway? Has Hathaway lost an engine? I think he has. He's lost an engine.
Failure. Strikes again. So, I mean, I'm not sure if we should continue to have these randomised engine failures in this game, because I think it's just ruins the race.
Well, we're not 100% sure what's happened there, whether it was a missed shift on the downshift or whether it was an expiry, but whatever the case, it's a double DNF for the HDS racing team. So, disappointment in this second race. Both those brand new liveried ZB Commodores are out of this race, and that promotes the rest of the field up the order a bit more. So, Matt Williams going wide again at turn number 1 and 2, but he has enough margin over Steve Burko to hang on to that there. So
Burko might be a chance to pass him if he keeps struggling into turn 1, because I think that it's just a brake modulation issue or something or other that's happening with the 37 FCR car. And
got a much better exit here too. He got a much better exit, did Steve Burko, and he's right in the wheel tracks here, but he needs to pick his line and pick his braking marker absolutely perfectly if he's to have a shot here down to turn 6. But no, now he's a bit too far back and he's going to roll up to the back. Oh, in actual fact, he locked the brakes. He braked too late, but he manages to gather it up. So great save from Steve Burko. Matt Williams is going to hate us, because every time we cut to him on any of our broadcasts, inevitably he does something that is unusual, and we don't know why. So I think he'd probably rather we don't watch him.
Yeah, okay, so let's switch to Burko now. Ricky Slick, Matt Williams, I guess unusual activities for an unusual person, possibly. Who knows? An unusual name in Ricky Slick, an unusual race team name that we cannot pronounce, we just abbreviate it. So, yeah. Oh, we've got another DNF, that's Cracker, from Cracker Racing Team. So, 6 cars DNF at the moment. So, we also didn't get to catch Glenn Miles, who was going a lap down, remember, and Glenn Miles in the Spitwater Nissan is out. So, there's one of the guest cars in the background having trouble. That was the Nick Burgett Dunlop car. That was Sid Davis.
Oh, great move from Turmo. Beautiful move from Turmo. Had the inside line, had the pace. And makes the pass, but Brownie back down the inside. But is there another switchback to take effect here? Yes, there is. So they've traded places 3 times in the space of 3 corners. And can Turmo hang on here? And Jamie Snow is ranging up onto the back of these two, having started from the pit lane. And a little bit of a moment there for Brownie. Just lit it up on the exit of turn 2, and that just gives a little bit of breathing room. Yep. Jamie Snow down the outside here, and that's all the invitation that he needed. Brownie will go defensive and will hang on for the moment. So these 3 have come together almost out of nowhere. And meanwhile, back out in front, Courier still managing to hang on to P3 ahead of Will Devonish, Boak and Foley, 1 and 2. Oh, and a tap!
Oh, he's around. No, he saved it. Oh, that was close.
That was very, very, very close to ending Turmo's race, but all 3 of them managed to get away with staying in the positions that they were. But smart driving to lay off after making contact there, Brownie. Otherwise, if you had kept into him there would have been a penalty for sure. For the moment, they'll go for another lap. So running.
Good to see our friend Juan Pablo Montermo as Lewis Redding would call him in the Castrol Turmo Racing number 715. A nice touch, I think, that he's managed to combine number 7 and number 15 from the Kelly Racing Team. And we had that pointed out the other night when we were doing the test broadcast, weren't we? That was our friend and gun commentator, Michael Zalavari, and he was commentating with Chris Riddell. So fantastic, 2 young blokes getting into it and doing a good job commentating. So Mitch Hathaway, he's just said that he's just given it a buzz on the downshift and he's cooked the engine. So and he thinks it's a disappointing night for HDS. Understandably, commiserations to you, Mitch. It's been a hard night and unfortunately nothing to show for the good pace of the HDS cars.
Certainly a shame, and just a little mistake on the down change is all it is to blow these. All it takes to blow the engines in these cars. Foley sets a new fastest lap of a 51.0. So he's actually closing in on his teammate now. Let's have a look at this gap, because it's only down to about 2.5 seconds. And here we go, and there's actually a change here potentially for the lead. Oh, they've come together! We cut together precisely the right time as Devonish and Courier have come together. Now, who's at fault there? Who was at fault at that thing? And now camera's just gone a bit wonky here, but who was at fault here? Because JP had been defending quite heavily from Will for some time, and Will had overlap. Now, who's at fault here? Oh, I would argue that maybe JP's just turned down a little bit, or maybe just tried to squeeze Will a little bit there.
Moving in the braking zone, perhaps a bit too eager on the defence there, but wheel-to-wheel contact, when that happens, it sort of takes it out of control.
And Matt Williams is off the road again. He's off the road again, and he's conceded 5th place now to Steve Burko. So JP has unfortunately retired from this race as a result of that contact. So that promoted everyone behind him up the order. So it promoted Brendan Ross up to 4th and Matt Williams to 5th and Burko to 6th. But now with that mistake, that allows Steve Burko back up to P5. So he's now up 7 places, Steve Burko. So good job. Made up some places from P12 all the way up to P5. And we wanted to go back to this battle at the front because Foley was starting to take time out of Phil Boak here. Last time around, they were only Foley was quicker by a tenth, but Foley beforehand was quicker by well over a half second, and on this particular occasion he was quicker again by 5/10 of a second. So this gap is coming down. There's really 2.5 laps remaining, 1.5 seconds. A mistake from Boak will put Foley right back on his tail. They got traffic here now too, and Boak's trying to use that traffic to get a slipstream and a run down through turn 5, which he does. Foley puts the lights on to let Sid know that he's coming, and he does get out of the way quite comfortably. So now it's down to 1.2 seconds. So Foley's giving this everything here. He doesn't want to let his teammate have it his own way. He wants those to make it a perfect night and get 300 points, which will put him on to 450 total and put him right back in this hunt. But Phil Boak's also looking for a little bit of redemption after his P14 finish in the second race at Albert Park last time out, because he's right up there in the point standings, and with both of these guys being ahead of Brendan Ross at the moment, they are eating into his points advantage. It's less than a second now. The gap is less than a second now. Has Foley timed this right, or has he not got enough time and enough laps to do so? Last time around he was 0.4 of a second quicker. He's still eating time. He's taken another 0.3 out in this sector alone. Has Foley preserved his tyres, or is he going to let his teammate have the chocolates on this occasion? Another 0.2 that time around. Fastest lap, 50.8 for Brenton Foley. Waiting for the time to come in from Phil Boak, but I can guarantee you it was well into the 51s. It was a 51.6, so Foley was a full 0.8 quicker. What's it now? Is it team orders? Or is it going to be every man for himself?
There's 50-50 there. Oh, here we go. He's going to run down the hill there, and there was a bit of a touch coming out of the corner, so it's going to be a drag race through turn 5. Last lap of the race. He's going to get one opportunity to do this at turn 6. He's moving to the inside at turn 5, but that's going to put him on the wrong side of the road. And he's got it. He might have it done, but he's got a bit of overlap there, so he's got to let his teammate through. He's got to yield. And let's see what's going to bring now. And they'll just stay in formation now.
Oh.
And he takes the victory. Wow, look at that. What a fantastic finish between teammates. And we're going to see Will Devenish come home in third. Second podium tonight.
Yep, second and a third for Will Devenish. And off the podium this time, Brendan Ross. So he'll get, he ends up with P3 and P4 on the night, Brendan Ross. Good drive from Steve Burko as well. So he was P4 in race 1 and P5 in race 2. So good solid haul of points for him. Matt Williams occupying P6. Cam Rutledge all the way back to Cam Rutledge. We didn't see much of him, but he's managed to hold off Jamie Snow for P7. Snow will end up with P8. Brownie dropped out of that battle that we were watching a little bit earlier, so he'll end up with P9. And Termo, what on earth's he doing? Drifting around the grass on the last corner, and with a nice big dent in the rear boot, to boot, and he finishes P10. And
Neil Crompton line at the final corner at Symmons Plains.
And Sid's
ended up in that sand
trap. What on earth is going on with Brian Walsh?
He might turn that wing upside down. The thing's going to take flight. Brought to you by Alitalia.
You need a flight out of here to go to Italia after this, but he's
back to their home. First time entering a race team based in Italy, the Scuderia Alitalia team.
And all the shenanigans that go on at the end of a race is now taking place. So,
bit of unwinding the stress, isn't it?
A little bit of stress being unwound right about now. So, a good victory for Phil Boak. And he really needed that too, so gets his championship track back on track nicely.
So we got the 2 PBF cars doing burnouts, 1-2 finish, and might be the first 1-2 finish of the season, isn't it?
It certainly is. That's the first 1-2 season. First 1-2 we've had in Super 2, and I can't recall another of the categories in AMS Oz where we've had a good finish. Ben Rhodes is off doing what Ben Rhodes does, and that's talking to everybody to find out what's going on. We'll wait for the drivers to filter in here as we settle down after what's been an interesting pair of races. One race that was decided, I would say, rather early and stabilised, and then the second race was she got a little bit close for comfort at the end there between the two teammates.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting with the teammates. They definitely weren't leaving anything on the table. They were rubbing and leaning on each other. It was fantastic racing, but obviously when that happens, it could always end in tears. But thankfully, they provided some good racing. No team orders to spoil anything. So we've got some of the podium finishes filtering in through now. So I'll start with third place, Will Devonish. Another successful and fruitful night in terms of getting a podium. Hey, mate.
Yeah, not as clean as the first race, unfortunately, though. But still a good race.
So with the all the cars coming together and it was getting pretty wild, and then we saw Billy Douglas Salonga go into the fence. Is that where you lost that position to JP Correa?
I think it happened a few laps later. I didn't get on the front straight properly, and he got past me into T1. I think 2 laps later.
We saw the incident down at turn 4. What's your take on the situation? I mean, I won't ask you for too much, but if you can provide a little bit of an insight, what happened? I mean, also taking into account that the stewards are looking at it.
Yeah, I'll probably have to rewatch it myself. From the driving seat, we were both pretty much full on under brakes, and kind of feel that JP may have moved over a bit on me. So yeah, I think I need to rewatch it and see what happens.
Yeah, nothing good happens when wheel-to-wheel contact happens, but good recovery in the third place and 2 podiums tonight. Well done.
Thanks, mate.
On to our second place together. We've got Brenton Foley. And Brenton, I thought you were going to win this race, but unfortunately for you in your title defence, it's you've gone to second, but still a very healthy haul of points tonight.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. As I said in the first interview, shocking it starts when they're uphill, and Phil got me straight away. He had a wicked start. Then we had a pretty good battle. We take a few different lines in different places, and our cars are strong in different spots. So I found that I think my setup, my brake ducting, didn't like it when I got behind another car. I'd get way too hot, so I didn't really plan that one well. But no, we had a really good battle till I kind of ran wide at turn 1, and after that I just continued to chip away at it and try and get the fastest lap each time, just so it pops up in the little corner and tries to annoy him a little bit. And finally got there towards the end. I just wish there was 5 more laps. It's a lot of fun though.
Yeah, it looked like a fantastic battle. The PBF panel beaters are going to be working real hard. I'll just use my words. Rubbing and racing and all that sort of stuff. Do you reckon you were going to make it if it wasn't for that mistake?
It's hard to tell. Phil's good at defending and stronger than me in different spots. He'd kind of drive away on some of the straights, and he was much better than me at the hairpin. So, yeah, really hard to tell. We did a little kind of practice race in the warm up, and I couldn't really pass him then either. So, not sure. We'll have to find out next round.
Well, it's good to see that you finished both the races tonight and both races on the podium. Brenton Foley, well done.
Thanks very much.
And on to our race winner tonight, Philip Boak, the second of the PBF Race Engineering Commodores, number 015. Congratulations on a fantastic victory tonight. Well done.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
So getting a bit difficult towards the end. Had a lot of pressure from your teammate, but how did you feel defending and with the Morse code going on?
Nah, that was all good. It was a bit of fun. I had like a section of 5 laps where I just like made a mistake. So I sort of went into like a little bit of a conserve mode, and then I sort of got stuck in it. And my setup used tyres a bit harder, so then I started struggling with the grip a little bit towards the end. So he was definitely the quicker one, but yeah, we just got there. Just.
That's all that matters, isn't it? Just the smallest margin is what gets you the win.
That's exactly it.
But good to see a 1-2 finish for PBF Race Engineering, especially with the troubles that either of you have had in the last round at Melbourne.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, race 2 for Melbourne wasn't too great for me, but race 1 wasn't bad. But yeah, and with Foley with his disconnects, that's been a struggle for him. So no, it's good. It was good to walk out the front row and then come home 1-2. It was a good effort. Boys did well.
Again, congratulations, Phil, on a fantastic race and good way to do it as well under pressure. Very memorable to commentate for Stephen and I.
That's it. I'm spewing about race 1 because I completely binned it. I binned quality, and then in the race I used a different setup, and the car wasn't really on, and I missed coming out of the gate, so I had to start from pit lane as well. I don't know what I was doing. I wasn't paying attention. So race 1 was a bit of a we'll forget that one, but yeah, come away trumps race 2.
That's our podium place getters. Our race winner, Phil Boak. Second place, Brenton Foley, and we've got in third place Will Devonish. Congratulations, fellas. A very hard-earned beverage waiting at the end of tonight for you.
Thank you. Thanks, boys.
Well, certainly some beverages have been earned tonight from the circuit, which presents a unique challenge to the drivers. The shortest circuit on the calendar that we visit. Just some provisional points that we're just working through at the moment just to see the lay of the land. And it looks like at the moment Brendan Ross will retain his advantage at the head of the point standings by virtue of his podium in third place on the 4th race of the season, and the 5th race he finished in 4th. So he has 795 points. Phil Boak looks like he'll move into second place with 723 points provisionally. And the third place man at the moment looks set to be Mitchell Hathaway at the moment. He's on 618 despite the fact that he did not finish that final race of the season. Defending champion Brenton Foley, he moves up to, can't see what position number he'll be in at the moment. We haven't finished working on that, but he'll ends up with 438 points after tonight's proceedings. So he's added points from another first place. So he's added 150 points from his race 1 win, and he's added 138 points from his second place in the second race tonight. So good haul of points there, and he moves up to there. In actual fact, Steve Burko's made a nice little move as well, as has Cam Rutledge. So they're closing in on 600 points between them as well. So they're still yet to be worked out. And of course, it's all provisional for the moment. There are a few drivers that will be under review for some of the incidents that have happened tonight, Hans.
Yeah, the stewards are going to be very busy, and the Driving Standards Observer is going to have an absolute earful of evidence from both sides. So hopefully it doesn't affect the outcome too much. But like you said, the stewards are going to have a look, and that may change the provisional points at the moment. But all in all, fantastic and action-packed racing from the Apple Isles Action Circuit, the 2.3 kilometre long Symmons Plains Raceway.
Certainly is, and that's all we have time for our broadcast tonight. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week for round 4 at the very, very aero-dependent Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit for Super 2. But in between now and then, please be sure to tune in on Sunday night for the 90 minutes of Sepang in the GT3 World Challenge. My name's Nether. I've been joined by Hans. Please, as always, drive safely. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.